Hello everyone and welcome to Helix Plays Games. My name is Richie and joining me this week is at CyberChris2077, Mr. Chris.
Hello everyone.
Hello indeed. And of course, Mr. Rob.
Hello.
How are you both doing?
I'm good, I'm quite good. It's a long bank holiday here. Of course, this episode goes live on a bank holiday Monday here in the UK, and this is the month of bank holidays. I actually don't have one full working week this entire month. It's great. I wish every month was like that.
I think I have one, maybe?
There is one in the middle of the month, but I'm
Yeah.
at a stag do, so I've took holiday days as well. So it's like, yeah. It's good looking.
Yeah, I
4-day
think
working weeks. It's the way forward, everyone. Get with the program.
It is. I think it was like last year, because of the way my holidays worked out and because of COVID stuff, I was able to carry a lot of holidays forward. So I basically went part-time for like 3 months. I didn't, for like 3 months at the start of 2022, I didn't work a full week.
Perfect. It's the dream.
It was pretty good. April sucked though when I got back to effectively being full-time.
Yeah, all that works out waiting.
Yeah, that as well. Rob, how are you?
I'm good. I don't really get the benefit of bank holidays anymore, but happy for have a few beers this weekend, like celebrate our new overlord, stuff like that.
But do you know who won't be celebrating? Phil Spencer over at Xbox, because we'll be talking about the fallout of Redfall, what will it take for StarField to turn the narrative around, and what do we want from the Xbox showcase? All that and much, much more on this week's XPass. But before we get into it, if you haven't already, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel or your podcast feed of choice with notifications turned on, so you're kept in the loop with all our great content here at Helix Plays Games, such as Talking the PS, where we break down all the PlayStation news and gaming happening over on the Sony side of things. And also our newest show, Lunar Listening, where every month, usually probably the start of the month, I think we're targeting the first Wednesday of every month, we'll be bringing down all the Amazon Lunar news. And hopefully next month we won't have the massive news of Fortnite coming to Lunar the day we published the show.
Yeah.
Bad timing,
podcast,
unfortunately, that.
brand new platform. I mean, good timing in a way, because then more eyes are on the platform. But yeah, we do a whole show breaking down the Prime games. We talked about all the retro games that are coming and how none of them appeal to us in the slightest because we weren't around in 1985. And then they go and drop like the biggest game arguably on the planet, then on the platform the next day immediately. So you know what, we'll pick it up next month. But shout out to everyone who tuned in, checked it out. We appreciate your time.
We also have our weekly live streams, usually either on a Thursday or Friday, where this last week Chris and I tried to play Redfall, but the internet gods were against us and it didn't really work. Not the game's fault.
Not the game.
We'll get into issues with the game in the news section, but that live stream being a bit of a clusterfuck is not the fault of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, gentlemen, what have you been playing? We'll start with you, Chris.
I am a Jedi Knight, and I've been hacking away, force pushing away in Jedi Survivor to the best of my abilities. I've been getting a cheeky hour here or two to chip away at it. I'm probably about 6 or 7 hours in, trying to do a lot of exploration. I intend to go for the Platinum Trophy, and I don't think there's any major titles on my horizon until maybe Spider-Man in a few months' time. I'm not that interested in Zelda, so I've got a good run at this one, and I think being a new parent, I'm pretty safe to say this game's probably going to take me several months anyway, as opposed to my usual get it boxed off in a fortnight.
Is it one of them situations where you've got a good run because there's nothing pressing immediately that's about a drop that you need to play, so you're kind of grateful for that situation?
Yep, absolutely. I've played a couple of games already this year. There's a few things that I wanted to check out. I think at the start of the year I did start playing The Witcher 3 again. For the 50th time, that's been shelved after the same point. I think I've got to one of the towns or villages and I've done the same chapters over again on the PS5 release version. and I'm just out. I think I just need to wait until the next Witcher 4 comes out and just start anew from there. But yeah, Jedi's got me. It's been on my radar since it was announced, and it's probably going to be my game of the year unless anything drastic changes.
Yeah, I think The Witcher for you is like Control was for me, where everything about the game should be like, yeah, I'm into it, but for whatever reason, it just didn't quite click.
I enjoy it. I just think it's the
I enjoy
size.
Control.
It's just the size. I don't have the time to dedicate the X amount of hours it takes to explore that world in as depth as it's required. I think you still have like a full playthrough to do, don't you, for the Platinum Trophy? Or did you do it?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you have to play on there's a difficulty-based trophy, so you have to play on a higher difficulty, which I almost completed, but then I realised there's a few missable Gwent cards that I'd missed, so I would have had to go back and start again, and you know when you just have that like sinking feelings, like
I'm done.
Yeah, I was done. It's like I'm not playing through the story at the moment. I was playing it for the trophies at that point, because I'd already played through it once when it first came out, and then I played through it again for the story before I went on my trophy run, and it's like I've done. I was probably about 20-30 hours deep into my second playthrough of like that patch. It's like I realised there was a missable trophy that I'd missed. I was like, nah, maybe another time. Yeah, I'm done.
I have heard Jedi Survivor though doesn't make you get 100%. So if anyone who played Jedi Fallen Order can recall, you had to kind of discover 100% of every map area. And with this one apparently has a little bit more wiggle room, so you don't have to get the full amount of coverage to get the trophies or achievements for that one. So a little bit of an easier journey I'm hoping for. But that's my plan: chip away at Jedi Survivor for the foreseeable and enjoy every moment of it.
Yeah. What about you, Rob?
To be honest, largely the same. Jedi has just taken over all my gaming time, save for a cursory look at Redfall, which we'll get into. It's just there's no other game that's even had its eyes kind of sneak into my field of view. It's all Jedi, and I'm loving basically every second of it, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. For me, I did play a bit more Redfall after the stream on my own, just kind of... I wanted to get a handful of hours in before we talk about it in the news, because I knew it's a big topic for this week. And unfortunately, we didn't get anywhere what we wanted out of the stream. But other than that, I kind of find myself... I've been playing... We'll talk about it a bit more talking the PS, so I'm not going to go too much in depth, but I'm burning out a little bit on Octopath, and I think I just need a bit of a reprieve from it before I go back in and push to the end. So I jumped into Breath of the Wild, and I must admit, I can feel Tears of Kingdom calling my name. I've said now Discord that I'm not going to do any content around it. I'm not buying it day one, and that is still the plan. But my head's been turned. But my Hogwarts 10, my head as well. I was in the same situation where this wasn't going to be a day one for me, and then I ended up pre-ordering it. But the thing is, I keep reminding myself I'm going on holiday to Montreal, New York in literally like 2 months' time. I need to put some money aside.
So he's, just to add fuel to the fire then, Richie.
Yeah.
How long's the flight to New York, Montreal and that?
Oh, it's very, very long.
Wouldn't a portable AAA first party game be a perfect flight accompaniment for such a long haul journey? It's almost like an investment for your trip, if you think about it that way. That's 7 hours there, 7 hours back. That's 14 hours worth of gameplay you could be putting into this game.
Well, I'm also bouncing between Montreal and New York, so I've got a lot of flights. I'm going to spend a lot of time in airports.
So there you go then.
But yeah.
So
but this was this is one of them like opportunity holidays that it's weird that I basically didn't plan this. It just kind of formed up. So I'm going to Montreal for work reasons, and while I'm there, I'm having a holiday. That's why it's all kind of sudden last minute. I'm not really haven't really put any money aside for it. And so I'm like, I need to save money now. But I mean, it's good.
Going to Redfall on holiday?
Absolutely not. No, I hear it's a bit. I hear it's a bit rough and just like it's quite murdery, to be honest. And I know New York can be a bit murdery, but Redfall seems excessively so.
Shade at all the New Yorkers out there.
The murders happen in New York. It's a big city. It happens everywhere.
It's not vampire murders, though. This is
No. That's true. Occultists. In fact, let's just get into it. Chris, would you like to introduce us to
the excellently exuberant, excavated Xbox expose, a.k.a. The News.
The News. And as always, our news is brought to you by our Helix Heroes, which you can join for as little as 99p over on our YouTube channel. Gives you early access to some content, custom badges and emojis in the live chat. First story of the week, the RedFallout. So, Chris, before we get into the reviews or anything, your first impressions, because you have played a bit of it.
Yeah, so with the caveat of we played Redfall, I played it via cloud gaming on my desktop PC, and my internet just shit the bed the night we streamed it. Like, it wouldn't stream the game. I reset the router, I reset my Google Wi-Fi mesh. Nothing was working. I think I was getting like 3 to 6 meg downloads, so apologies for anyone who tuned in and watched, and it just wasn't up to our standard. Virgin Media, my internet providers, apparently was not having any of it that night. I tried a hotspot from my phone. We played a little bit, but I don't want to do a disservice to a game that's already been shit on from every corner of the world. I can see there being fun in Redfall from my first impressions. It's almost, I think, last year when we kind of early previewed it, it looks like Far Cry with vampires. And I'm down for that. And to jump onto a stream and play with you guys and our wonderful community, the 2 folks who jumped in with us as well, for all of 40 minutes until we got kicked out, I was having fun. Like, don't get me wrong, the game has its faults, and we'll get into that. But for the premise of the game, I can see me having fun. And in a weird way, all of the news stories around it makes me want to like it more, just because it's getting, like a good underdog story. Yeah, and I'm kind of like, I want to give it its due and jump back in and enjoy it properly, because I think there's definitely fun there, but evidently Phil Spencer, Arcane, and the rest of the world don't think so.
Yeah, I'm a bit torn, because like you, I kind of wanted to root for it. I wanted it to be good. Mm-hmm. But there's 2 ways I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking in a purist, here's a video game I got, it's just part of Game Pass, it's effectively a free-to-play game. But I'm also thinking of this is a $70 title that is one of Microsoft's tentpoles for the year, and they're trying to bring out one big tentpole title every quarter. This is meant to be one of the pillars of gaming for Xbox this year. So in the free-to-play, this is a Game Pass title as just a nice addition to the library. I think it's fine. I think the gameplay, the design feels a bit by committee, to be honest. It feels like they've took a lot of like buzzwords and slapped them together. And like, oh, what if we took something like Left 4 Dead, but added RPG mechanics and made it open world, and added some games as a service kind of stuff in there. It feels like that's the kind of core design philosophy, and I think it's probably come out about 10 years late. Part of me, and my first impression actually when I jumped in, it was when you're in the lobby and I first saw the character model load up, my first thought was to go, ooh, that's looking a bit rough. Which, again, I was playing on the cloud same as you, so I wanted to give it fair due. So I did eventually install it on my Xbox and on my PC. So on my PC, I jumped in, turned all the sliders right up to the top just to see, like, apart from, like, resolution, because I only have a 1080p monitor. But in terms of, like, the overall, like, texture qualities, you can kind of get a good idea of what you're looking at still. Mm-hmm. And it's still quite ugly. Like character models, especially.
Is it the art style?
I don't think it's art style. I don't think it's art style. I think it's just bad textures.
Okay.
And I noticed a lot of like aliasing and stuff, like, when you get the jaggies along edges and stuff.
Yeah, jaggies.
Yeah, I think when you're playing in the fast frenetic action, it doesn't stand out as much. The environments look fine, but even when I fought like a vampire for the first time, I thought it looked a bit underdone. Honestly, it's the sort of title, in terms of just the graphics of it, that if I told you it came out as an early Xbox One title, I think you'd believe me. And as a tentpole title for Microsoft in 2023, I don't think that's good enough in terms of that initial presentation.
Well, it's back to that, is it art style over substance of, like, I'm about to check out, we said on the channel, the Rise Son of Rome for its 10th year anniversary, and that game looks gorgeous still.
I think that game looks better than Redfall.
God, yeah.
And is that telling, or is that, again,
this is my point.
The scenes?
So I'm not the biggest graphics snob. I can get over that sort of stuff if I think the game is good enough. But again, this comes back to where I'm a bit torn between those. This is just a Game Pass library title, which is what it is to me, or the reality of this is a Microsoft tentpole $70 title.
Well, you've got to kind of look at how many people who are Xbox fans who are just Game Pass users now anyway. I can't imagine there's any hardcore Xbox players out there still buying their titles for $70 when it's just including Game Pass. Like, you might as well just get Game Pass and you get so much more stuff. And I feel it does go a little bit to soften the blow. Like, I'll be honest, if we did a stream last Thursday, Richie, and both of us collectively were out of 140 quid, we'd probably be a lot more pissed off.
This is why
it's included.
I think, for me, for what this game is, it's delivering what my expectations were for it. It's a game as a service title that it's going to be great fun playing with you two on multiplayer, on live streams and stuff. I can have some fun with there, but otherwise it's not particularly a game I was ever drawn towards.
Like, is it fun though? Is it fun? Like,
it's fun when we're playing together, but is that more of just because it's us playing together that makes it fun?
Like, could any game kind of fun in that setting though, isn't it? Like, like when I was playing it, it was just the thing that really broke it for me. I can deal with like 30 frames per second.
Actually, well, I won that.
I
was surprisingly okay with it. I thought it was, despite it only being 30 frames per second on both cloud, Xbox Series S and PC, I was okay with it. Surprisingly so.
Yeah, exactly. It's fine, and I can forgive the art style or the graphics, whatever. Like we agreed that is not looking like kind of Jedi Survivor, for example. But I just can't forgive it not being fun. Like, if you don't want to die in that game, all you have to do is stand behind any obstacle, and like the vampire will just try and like attack through a table or something, which it knows it should know it can't do.
It's bad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like it just falls apart in that regard. And like I can forgive 2 or 3 issues like that. I can't forgive the entire game being that.
This is what I mean by, if it's just a Game Pass title, it's absolutely fine. But the reason I keep bringing up this being a $70 title is that's how Microsoft marketed it as. That is what they put forward. They put their weight behind this game and went, this is why you should buy Xbox. And this is not why you should buy Xbox. This is a fun addition to the library. If this was just a smaller passion project, I think you'd be, I'd like say, a $40 title. I think you'd be absolutely fine.
Yeah. It goes back to all the other things that Microsoft have put out. Because let's face it, they're being raked through the coals quite a lot, and there's that kind of dissatisfaction bubbling up within the Xbox community. And when you look back, you had Pentiment, 10 out of 10s. You had Hi-Fi Rush getting really top scores, like Shadow Drop, 9 out of 10s.
Grounded did well.
Very,
all
very
these
well.
Smaller passion projects are nice additions to the library. We talked tomorrow on Talking to PS, where I said Concrete Genies should have been like that for PS Plus, but they kind of shot themselves in the foot by not bringing it to PS Plus.
Yeah, and it goes back to that weird thing that it's held at a different echelon. This game was marketed in the Halo Gears of War levels of this is going to be top notch. And again, let's not forget Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. Even though they were PlayStation exclusives, they were made technically by Xbox first party now, and they're both available on Game Pass too. But it is almost a weird thing that it's the prestige of Arcane, and the fact that before this there was Deathloop, Game of the Year nominated title, the Dishonored series, Prey, all famous for like their stealth approach and their action. And yet, again, back to Rob saying about gameplay, there's barely any stealth in Redfall at all. You would think you'd be able to sneak. I think the first mission we did, Richie, was like sneak in the house or go in through the front door or do this. And I didn't feel like there's anything actually funneled us towards sneaking up on these vampires or the cultists, because it's just basic.
It all feels a bit generic. Like, again, I come back to this kind of concept that it feels like almost designed by, the core concepts were designed by a committee of marketing execs, which I actually know from the interview that Phil Spencer did with the Kind of Funny XCast. This game was already halfway through development before Microsoft bought Arcane. So that's literally not the case. But it feels like, well, if we took Left 4 Dead and then we made it open world, made it a bit more like Far Cry, and our novel thing would be like vampires that took over this thing, it just feels like they've looked at all these almost like buzzwords and just slammed them together. And you just end up with like what can be. There's some fun to be had here, but just feels subpar.
Yeah. Do you want to run through the actual reviews to see how it is faring out there in the world of video games? Because it's not just our take on it. I feel like the general consensus is not great.
Generally, it's not doing well. So GameSpot give it a 4 out of 10. I can't.
So did IGN.
So IGN give it 4 out of 10. Xbox Era give it an 8.5 out of 10. This is what I mean. There is some good there. Windows Central 3 out of 5. But I think a general consensus is this is 5 to 7-ish in that kind of range, depending on your view on it. And again, I could give this a 7, or I could give it a 3, based on how you bought it. If I went to a shop, bought this off the shelf, 70 quid, got home and played that game, it's a 3 out of 10. But having a Game Pass as just a title that I wasn't particularly looking forward to, it wasn't really that game that I'm massively excited for, like something like Jedi Survivor or Tears of the Kingdom. I could give it a 7 because I think there is fun to be had.
Yeah, this could be one of those stories of like redemption, similar to, because again, Sea of Thieves was kind of a similar thing where it launched to like not great reception, and then over the years it's improved. And if Xbox are leaning into this games as a service title, like I do believe there is a world where by the time we get to Halloween this year, patches, updates, bug fixes and stuff, and you want to play something that's horror specific, jump in with your mates and have a great time, and it could be a lot more polished and clean. And you mentioned Phil Spencer, of course, came out this week and went on the Kind of Funny XCast and kind of addressed front and centre a lot of the criticisms of the game and the production and the development delay conversations that'll have happened around this title. And it's a storm of bad things, isn't it? The fact that this game was delayed, StarField was delayed, so both of these titles should have been out last year, and Xbox had a very quiet year last year, so everyone almost gave them a pass because of things like Game Pass and a couple of the smaller titles that have released. It's almost satiated the audience a little bit. But now we've kicked into 2023, and this was, remember, the first big tentpole game. And because it's slipped out the door, it's almost setting a bad precedence where the amount of focus on Starfield has to be a banger hit now. Like, Starfield needs to be a 10 out of 10, like, generation-defining title. And let's face it, Bethesda, Fallout, are they known for putting out games without bugs and glitches and jank? Like, of all the people to rely on to put a game out that's got polish in like a complete game,
they're not the ones.
Yeah, we have one more tentpole title that's potentially before Starfield and Forza, which I think Forza's a slam dunk for them. I don't have any worries about that game, apart from the fact that it's a racing game, and I'm not a racing game fan, therefore I'm not going to probably play it apart from a stream.
Yeah, it's not even Horizon,
so I don't think Forza takes the pressure off Starfield.
No, it doesn't, because I think there's a much bigger audience who doesn't give a shit about racing games as opposed to the ones who are playing all the other genres. And I think the captured audience for Starfield is way, way beyond anything Forza will do in terms of numbers and input. Like, again, I think you're right, Richie. Forza's a known quantity. They'll nail it. It'll look gorgeous. Any racing enthusiast will lap it up. Yeah, but it's not the wide appeal that Starfield is aiming for, and the millions of people. Like, Starfield is you need to buy an Xbox to play Starfield title. And
so that's
the pressure's crazy.
Before we go into like the Phil Spencer stuff, let's actually talk about Starfield and like kind of what we expect from it. Because again, as you mentioned, this does put a lot of pressure on it, and I either use excited for Starfield yet. Put aside anything else that's going on with Xbox, just pure on the game.
I can't say I am, which is, from like a Bethesda fan, kind of is a bit strange, really. I mean, like obviously, like, love Skyrim. Like, Fallout is one of my favourite game franchises, and
when was the last time Bethesda? Because I'm with you, Rob. When was the last time Bethesda put out a game that you loved?
Do you count all the Skyrim remasters and stuff?
No, Skyrim gets the original release, but I think that's telling.
Yeah, I
You know what?
guess.
Fallout 4 was good, but more
I
of the
enjoyed it.
same. Fallout 3?
I enjoyed Fallout 4. Fallout 3 was before Skyrim.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Damn. Was New Vegas? Oh, New Vegas was Obsidian, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was the best game ever.
I think that was before Skyrim.
Would you take a New Vegas remake then?
Absolutely, yeah.
Not by Bethesda, though. Because it would ruin the original for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Obsidian are kicking around. They've just done Grounded.
Yeah.
It's
but
for me again. I've said on the show, my take is I've never played Bethesda games really that much. The biggest one I've got the Platinum Trophy in the first Wolfenstein reboot. But other than that, there's always been something. And I said that about Ghostwire, and I said that about Prey and Dishonored, and why Redfall originally didn't really do anything for me. There's something about either the engine or the art style of that Bethesda game, or it's probably just me in first-person titles. But Starfield being a brand new IP, I've said it's the chance they can get me in on like what is a Bethesda game. And as you said, it's all the magic of Fallout and Skyrim in space. And at the moment, I'm indifferent towards it. But then again, I'm not the audience. I'm not a Bethesda fan. I'm not a Fallout fan.
But this
I appreciate
should be
them.
the
So
sort of game that's turning your head.
Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily. And that's not because of it be like all the story and conjecture around it. It's just because the marketing and stuff. It looks like a cool space
We haven't seen
game.
much. We haven't seen much, to be fair, in terms of gameplay. There's a lot of Todd Howard just talking about the game. But at the moment, so far, it's been a lot of tell, not show. And I think that it really needs to go the other way, because we do know there is a StarField Direct coming, literally after the Xbox showcase in June.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think they need to do to kind of turn the narrative around at the moment? Because I think we all agree Microsoft didn't to dig themselves out the hole that they found themselves in at the moment in early 2023. It's on Starfield. As the slate is at the moment, it's on Starfield to kind of get them moving back in the right direction.
Well, this is where it comes down to like a wider appeal. And Phil Spencer, in his interview with Kind of Funny this week, said a couple of key things that I thought were critical. He actively acknowledged that they cannot out-console the competition. He admitted they are in third place.
Yeah.
And he said...
to be fair, he was very candid on that interview. And to be honest, I have a lot of respect for him doing it, considering everything that's went on with Xbox recently.
Absolutely. And you'll have diehard fans.
That's him like bricking it walking in that interview. That is not a fun experience for him.
No. And yeah, there's a couple other things he said. So he admits that they're in third place. He says that they can't out-console the competition, and he laments the fact that they lost that Xbox One generation, and he goes on to describe that was probably the most key generation to lose, because it's when people built up their digital libraries. The PlayStation 4, Xbox One was when everyone started to build up their digital games. So when they moved console every generation, they took them with them. And because I think Xbox lost that generation, and Phil, again, he knows this is a fact, everyone who was kind of into that ecosystem, they ain't going to switch. So it's not like back in the day where you just keep your old console on your discs. Because everything's forward progressing, if I've got a shelf with about 100 plus PS4 games on, I ain't switching to Xbox necessarily when my PS5 can play them all. So, I'm naturally going to move towards PS5, and because they've lost that, they lost their foothold in the market, and then who could have knew about the success of the Switch? That's just been astronomical, to a point where they are in third place.
Yeah,
but I don't think that has to be a bad thing.
Weird Nintendo stuff. They seem to have some hits. They seem to have Nintendo 64, massive hit. GameCube, probably not as hit as I thought, I think, but it's still very much beloved. Wii, massive hit. Wii U, massive flop. Switch, pretty much, yeah, that's what we want from Nintendo going forward. We
normally I'd
literally want to Switch 2.
It would do a flop now, but then, again, you'll take your whole Switch library with you, no doubt. I mean, most of your Switch library is made up of Wii U ports, so to be fair...
I'm hoping that Nintendo don't do a weird Nintendo decision with the next console and just make a Switch 2. Everything, just take the Switch, it's great, make it better in every single way, and keep it backwards compatible. That's all I want from Nintendo for the next console. Just the same, but improved.
But in terms of the Xbox ecosystem, he goes on to say, like, we're not in that game without consoling them. And he's always said, and the reason I have an Xbox and I bought into that mantra now is because of the ecosystem. I can play anywhere on PC. I've got Game Pass Ultimate. I can play on my PC. I can play on my phone. I can play on my console. And I get XPass, which is games given to me. And again, Redfall, for all we've got to give it criticism, I didn't really pay anything for it, so I don't feel that much like done over because it's not cost me anything additional than I would have already paid. Titles I've never checked out before, Atomic Heart and stuff, I've had a chance to play thanks to Game Pass. And I think there's a lot of great groundwork that goes in, and being in third place isn't terrible when you're making hand over fist millions and millions of dollars every year. The revenue last week was fantastic. Console numbers were down, which is a bad look, but Game Pass revenue was up. And so it's like, it's pros and cons, and I think there's a lot of pressure on StarField, but I do think if they're going into this showcase this summer, this is when they can garner a lot of goodwill, communicate with their audience and say, look, we've had a tough couple of years, but we keep saying it, guys, time and time again. The boot has to drop at some point when all of those 20 studios they've acquired, they start to put stuff into production and get them out the door. Phil says in his interview, pardon me, one of the difficulties with Arcane and Redfall was they were already deep into development on Redfall. So when they bought ZeniMax and they acquired Arcane, they looked at them and went, well, they're already making a game, and they just left them to their own devices. And Phil laments the fact...
He does say in the interview that he thinks that was an oversight, and by the time they realised they were having like some quite serious, like, not bugs, but actual design philosophy issues, they were in a difficult position where it's hard to turn it around.
Yeah, it almost, you can imagine, like, the heads of Microsoft, they go to Bethesda, they're looking at StarField, they go to Arcane on, like, a business visit, shows what you've got, they show them a demo, they talk about the premise, it's vampires, it's games as a service, it's going into Game Pass, it's Arcane, who, again, previous titles, phenomenal. Their last game was Deathloop. Game of the Year nominated, award-winning title. So you look at them and go, yeah, cool, keep doing what you're doing. It's your passion project. We'll check in with you next year when we're getting closer to launch. And then it gets delayed. And then by then, you're so far down the rabbit hole, I think they had problems with the engine and something to do with the ecosystem because they'd never really done a multiplayer game before. And Phil admits and he says maybe we should have brought them more in-house, hooked them up with the fellow Xbox studios so there's a bit more synergy earlier on. But no, they left them to the devices and it ends up shooting them in the foot long term.
Yeah.
And that can be helped sometimes. He says they'll have to learn from those mistakes. And he's already said with Battlefield, where am I going with that? Starfield and Bethesda, they've started working with them at an earlier point, and all the little niggles and glitches that they've maybe seen reflected in Redfall shouldn't happen with Starfield because that's a worry.
I still worry, though, that Starfield is just going to be Skyrim in space. And I think we're so far removed on from Skyrim. And this is, I think, some of the problems we're hitting with Microsoft is a lot of their game designs feel like still rooted in the Xbox 360 era, where Sony, with their first party like tentpole titles, have continually evolved what the games are. If you look, if you can almost track, if you look at Naughty Dog, you can track the progression from the first Uncharted all the way up to Last of Us 2. And while they are still actually quite similar games, you can see how they've evolved that gameplay style and what that studio does in a way over time, where I just don't really see that from any of the Xbox stuff. And this is where I'm worried about Bethesda, because you mentioned Fallout 4 was just more Fallout.
Yeah, like, and they're using the same engine as well, remember, as well. It's not a new engine that they've... Like, that engine must be falling apart now. Have
we moved on? I think as gamers, we individually have moved on, but as the gaming industry moved on from this idea of these massive open worlds, almost like sandboxes where you can just drop your character in, a blank slate of a character, and just go out of the world and explore and do your thing. Because I know where I'm at in my point in time in life. I'm preferring almost, oddly to say, considering how much time I put in Octopath, more slimmed down, a bit leaner games where the narrative is a lot more focused.
So I think
and there's less dead time just moving through the world.
I think a lot of this is due to the fact that gaming as a medium is kind of merging a lot more with TV and kind of like film and stuff like that. And that that favours a really kind of tight narrative. And I think as more kind of, gaming's went to that kind of mainstream transition, and I think the mainstream and the mass audience likes tighter narratives like you get from a Naughty Dog game, or you get from kind of like Jedi kind of Fallen Order and stuff like that. I think that is the standard for gaming now, and as you say, like the kind of like the bro shooter and the super open app like world RPG, I think the
audiences outgrew them in a way, right? Where like everyone who enjoyed them when they were teenagers and stuff, like a big chunk of the video game audience, and the reason it's one of the biggest industries is because it's growing with them. Like the audience they didn't exist prior to now, and now you have people in their 30s, people in their 40s who still love video games, have the money, the disposable income to spend on these things. And my biggest favorite games are third-person story adventures for the most part, like Naughty Dog's Uncharted, Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, Horizon, and PlayStation is catering to that audience. And I'm hoping for what we see at the showcase, it's the Indiana Jones game. If they come out and tell me the Indiana Jones game's a first-person game, I'll be royally just frustrated with it.
Oh yeah,
I really will, because I want to see Indiana Jones. I want to see myself using the whip, swinging over things. I want to see my traversal and that Uncharted. It literally needs to be Uncharted, but with Indiana Jones. That's all I need.
The games, all the studios that kind of fall under that ZeniMax banner from like Bethesda and Arcane, I always think they feel the same. There's something about them where this is why I've made the mistake of calling. I think it might have been Redfall.
Ghostwire Tokyo.
Ghostwire Tokyo, where I said it was from Bethesda, because it feels absolutely like a game I'd expect Bethesda to make. And I think if you look at the machine game stuff, things like Wolfenstein or even id with Doom, like they all feel a lot. All these first-person games, they feel the same.
It's first-person syndrome, where all you see is hands doing that, or a weapon, or a block. You're interacting with buttons by smushing your face against it. You're too far low down where, in theory, the camera's in the guy's crotch. And yeah, it's no surprise, whereas all the other companies are putting out titles that have character, they have story, they have development, they have just exploration that goes beyond just first-person. And I think there is something to be said about some of the best stories of all time in any medium are about characters and story, and video games are so much more able to portray that now than ever with voice actors and mocap suits. And I think the Xbox audience are just looking at the other side of the coin and looking at Nintendo, looking at Sony and going, right, you've got Nintendo's whimsy and fun and family-friendly titles, and then on the flip side, you've got PlayStation telling really deep narrative story with characters who become beloved, like Joel and Ellie. It's literally just a dude and a girl, and yet they're some of the most popular characters in the world right now, and it's no surprise because the Bethesda and the Fallout people, who am I? Look at the Halo thing. How much of a kickoff was it because you saw Master Chief's face, because he wasn't just a faceless guy behind a mask? And the reality is, because you can't tell a story on a TV show without seeing who your main protagonist is. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Yeah.
And video games are in essence stories, and we've praised on Talking to PS Tomorrow Cal Kestis and Jedi Survivor, and how you care about his story and his journey because
he's
you're with
such
him.
A good character. We want him to transition over into the extended media.
Yeah. If it was just lightsaber being waved in front of the camera, or a blaster, or a hand being pushed out to force push things, I wouldn't give two shits about Cal, because I'm playing as Cal, and these games have served a purpose of RPG. But you had this showcase, hit me with Indiana Jones, hit me with Hellblade, and a couple of brand new titles that are third person. I think that's what Xbox need to do, is see what the competition do and go, you know what?
Yeah.
We keep pushing this first-person shooter narrative, and it ain't working.
I think there's space for these kind of blank slate characters, because I don't mind a blank slate character from time to time. But when you're not really pushing anything else, that then becomes a bit stale, a bit samey. I think this is one of my problems with worries about Starfield. Going back to Starfield I'm expecting this to be a blank slate character that I jump in. It's going to be, again, just Skyrim in space, and I haven't seen anything from them or heard how he talks a lot in doing the press stuff, but he never really says anything of substance. I want to see from Starfield, why should I be excited about this game, and not without using the words, it's the next big game from Bethesda.
Yeah. If you think back to the points I was making there, the two recent titles on Xbox that stand out for me, Hi-Fi Rush. so much praise.
Yeah.
Everyone can't wait for a sequel. The characters in that are fantastical, and Chi, the main character, and the cat, and his companion, and the world. So,
great game.
It was fun. Yeah, great game. Probably been some Game of the Year discussions for a lot of people. But I know who he is. I remember his name. I know what his character's like, his attitude, what he brings to the
memorable.
world. Exactly. And then to pivot to another Xbox game, also a first-person shooter, High on Life. Why was High on Life received so well just before Christmas? Because all the characters in the guns. So yes, it had the first-person element, but the characters and all of those weapons, Justin Roiland aside now, whatever's going on with him, it did something different, and it got such high praise. And it was one of Game Pass, if not Game Pass, is one of the most successful games they've had on it. And it goes back to what I was saying about just character. And yes, I think you're totally right, Richie. There is a time and a place for these games, and they're undoubtedly amazing unto themselves, the Skyrims, the Fallouts of the world. But is the Xbox audience wanting something different now? Because we've had like 20 plus years of like these, like Rob said, bro shooters and stuff. And I've not had interest in Call of Duty or anything for years now. So if it ain't appealing to me, then who are we appealing to?
Well, let's actually dig into that a bit further, because we have a Xbox showcase coming June the 11th. Now, I kind of want to try and make this... We've been quite negative so far on the show, I think rightly so. But let's spin it to the positive. What do we want to see from the Xbox showcase? What is our dream lineup? Because I think we can all agree, based on the last 40 minutes, this is a big showcase for them. There's a lot on this. They need to come out absolutely swinging. And Phil Spencer, in that kind of funny interview, which I keep going back to, did say he's seen some really exciting stuff in there.
But hasn't he said that before? Obviously, there's a StarField Direct that follows it, so essentially they could really help Starfield's journey by nailing the showcase. Yeah,
so I think we can rule, for this part of the conversation, we can rule Starfield out because it's literally getting its own Direct.
Indeed.
So it's what else? So I'm now thinking of what else has Microsoft got in the tank to show us? Because even if Starfield is a 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, that's one game. That's not enough, to be fair. They need more. They need to get us excited of what's coming for this year and what's coming for the next few years.
Like, for me, it's Hellblade. Like,
it needs a date, right? I feel like they've shown us a lot of Hellblade, but like
they keep bringing it up, but have they actually shown us that much?
Just lengthy big trailers that have been out the last two showcases. She's seen her run out of a cave, and then she's chased by that like massive troll thing, and the graphics look great. The Unreal Engine tech demo showcased just a few weeks back. That was all Hellblade, but again, it's like, right, stop showing us now and like actually give us a lot, give us something like hardcore that's in there. Fable, they've been talking about Fable forever now.
I'm actually with you with Hellblade, and touching on Hellblade, one of the reasons why I'm with you is all the things we've just been saying about the ZeniMax stuff, where everything all seems samey. Hellblade feels like something Hellblade feels like it could be a Sony first party.
I mean, the first one is on PlayStation, so...
Yeah, but in terms of like the concept and the quality we've seen from it, that's what I want from Xbox. Like, so, yeah, I'm with you, Hellblade. Fable, you were about to say?
Yeah, it's just one of them things. Again, it's been talked about, rumoured, showcase for so long, yet we've only seen like a little splash screen.
Do you get a bit worried that Fable's been made by Playground Games, who is best known for Forza?
No, in a way, because it's such a gorgeous game anyway when they put them out, and we've seen like Guerrilla pivot from Killzone to Horizon. Funnily enough, not Forza Horizon, but Horizon. And like, I think if you're a game developer, you're a game developer regardless of the content, like the genre that you're in. And I think giving them a chance to flex and maybe take on a beloved franchise such as Fable could be a great pivot, and it just allows them to do something that isn't a racing game every other year. So it doesn't worry me. It worries me that they might take a little bit longer because they're not used to dealing with certain mechanics outside of driving. So there's a lot of like new things they've got to learn as a studio. But again, just tell me about it. What else is there? Again, I said it earlier on, Indiana Jones for me. They teased it last year. We got that like 10-second pan across a table with the book and the whip and the hat. Like, Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny comes out this summer. So if you want to get in on the hype of that, it's the last movie with Harrison Ford. And I just, again, if this ends up being first person, or it maybe doesn't have the likeness of Harrison Ford, they could hit some bumpy roads along the way. If they have Harrison Ford and it's third person, this could be my next Uncharted. So like, I could leave the showcase being like, let's effing go. I cannot wait for this. Or I could leave going, it's another first-person faceless game.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And similar ways, like Avowed. I think Avowed looks awesome, but it just looks like Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
And
They've
that
not
comes
said
back to
anything about it either, really.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about this showcase coming. I think Avowed's probably going to be there. But again, it's another thing that just... Because it looks so much like Skyrim from what we've seen, the little we've seen, does it just fall into that category of like, well, maybe 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, this would be a massive hit. However, it's no longer what I'm looking for in games. I mean, some of this is a very much personal thing. I don't think Xbox is in any sort of like danger at all, but
Oh no.
yeah, I'm struggling to think of what else. Like what are id Software working on? What are Machine Games working on?
Well, Machine
It's
are
a
doing
lost
Indiana
studio, wasn't
Jones.
Oh yes, Machine. Yeah,
That's Machine. You've got to imagine they could have handed something off for the Wolfenstein franchise. It's kind of odd that we got 1 and 2, and then it just... Usually they come in trilogies, don't they? So we're still kind of waiting on that. What's happening with Doom? Like, Doom Eternal was received well, but that's a couple of years ago now. It's 2019.
yeah. So maybe we're ready for like a next Doom. That
And
could
again-
be that could be a good bet actually. Maybe it is time for the next Doom, because both Doom 2016, Doom Eternal both landed quite well.
Absolutely, received really well. And let's remember, with Game Pass and stuff, there's a lot of second-party deals, third-party deals they could be making. Like, there are titles, there are studios out there that are grafting away at making stuff.
There's things like As Dusk Falls, The Ascent. There's stuff in there.
Yeah. One of the things we've not really touched on when we talk about Xbox, which is weird, is like Minecraft. Like, Minecraft Legends did come out and was reviewed well, and we had a great time playing it. And I think just because it's Minecraft, it's its own entity unto itself. Yeah, but like that was one of their releases this year. Went straight into Game Pass, and it's doing well.
But yeah, it's weird. I think Minecraft Legends for me falls into that. It's not one of the pillars that Xbox talk about. These like where every quarter they want to have this like big pillar game. I think I see Minecraft Legends as one of them great Game Pass titles that's kind of bubbling under the surface. That very, very nice to have in the library, but it's not. You're not looking. It's not the thing that in a short pit, in an elevator pitch that Phil Spencer's pointing to why you should buy an Xbox.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what I see the pillars as, and going, like, if you are, the equivalent for PlayStation would be, the reason why you should buy PS5 is God of War, it's Horizon, it's Ghost of Tsushima, it's Spider-Man, it's Last of Us. That's, and then there's other games that Sony can point to as like the smaller titles. That's where I see Minecraft Legends. Great title, but not the elevator pitch title.
Perfect Dark.
Perfect Dark.
We know they're working on a Perfect Dark remake, reboot. They've got Square Enix helping them out with that. And
I don't know how I feel about that one. Square Enix are not really doing well in terms of like the more Western style games at the moment.
Was it Square Enix, or was it Crystal Dynamics? Then they got bought out halfway through it. So I think that's technically Embracer with Crystal. So it's the Tomb Raider team who were helping out with Perfect Dark.
All right, okay, I'm a bit more confident then.
Yeah, but then again, that goes back to what we said previously. Perfect Dark, it's a faceless shooter. Well, not faceless shooter, but it's a shooter from a bygone era, let's say. And I've got no love for Perfect Dark. Like, no offense to our viewers. I know Code Z's and Mazza, who does our theme tune for this show.
It was big on the N64.
Massive fan.
It was huge on the N64. Arguably it was arguably as big as GoldenEye. I think it actually is meant to be the better game than GoldenEye. But I think with GoldenEye being James Bond and being like having that IP and coming out before it, I think GoldenEye is the more memorable.
Yeah, I mean, again, Perfect Dark, everything you just echoed there, Richie, it's completely true. But is a reboot of that really going to move the needle much for Game Pass?
I think it
Xbox?
I think it could, but again, there's another first-person shooter.
Yeah, that's the problem, is it's just more of the same stuff. So I'm sure we'll get some little indie titles. I'd love to see another follow-up to Tunic. I think we're maybe a bit early for that, but that was a great game.
Well,
Ori and the Will of the Wisps and Blind Forest.
It's kind of weird. I think I touched on a bit in Talking to PS Tomorrow, where at the moment Sony absolutely nailing these big pillar AAA, quadruple A games, or whatever you want to call them, and maybe lacking a bit more depth under the surface in terms of like the breadth of the library. I think Microsoft are the absolute polar opposite, where their big titles are not landing, But the slightly smaller titles are all landing really quite well.
Yeah, but I guess the issue is those like smaller titles, they're much, much smaller than the big mega hits. And fair enough, it makes like for a good experience for a gamer, but is it going to move the needle commercially, which is what needs to happen, because otherwise stuff gets cold, as we've seen.
I don't think they need to out-console Sony, as like Phil Spencer puts it. Mm-hmm. But you do need to have something, and I'm not saying.
Yeah, you have to like pick part of the. It's hard though, because you have to pick part of like the Xbox product.
You need to do your own thing.
Yeah, like what.
But you also need to meet expectations.
Yeah, so it's really difficult, and like I hit like if we went back like 6 months when we first kicked off this podcast or whatever, we were like soaked in optimism for how good Game Pass was, and
still stands true.
It still stands true, but like you can feel yourself tapping into that goodwill reserve a lot more recently.
It goes back to, I guess, the point you're saying there, Rob, is that I'm totally satiated with Game Pass. I think it's fantastic, but I barely touch my Xbox. And that's the problem. Yeah. And then because of that stigmatism, when it comes to third-party purchases, I'm buying Jedi and Hogwarts on my PS5 because naturally I'm gravitating towards there, because I think I'm perceiving PlayStation as the better place for games because of all the other interstitial exclusives that come out. So Redfall and StarField should have done enough for me so that when the next Star Wars game comes out or the next FIFA or something, I go, I'm going to buy that on Xbox. But at the moment, I ain't thinking like that. And I'm the person who's not in the ecosystem as fully as maybe an Xbox gamer through and through is. I'm the person you need to convince. Starfield needs to convince me to resubscribe to Game Pass in a year's time. I'm still having a hell of a time with Starfield and then soon to be Hellblade and whatever Indiana Jones is, when all of our Game Pass Ultimate are due for renewal in like another year and a bit, and my Series S is running out of steam, and maybe they announce a new console or a Pro version. They're the things that are going to make me go, you know what, Phil, Xbox team, there's another £400 out of my hard-earned cash.
Yeah, like and you two especially. I like the key there. Like they've had this like little morsel of an opportunity to hook you into Xbox, and the same like I've had like Xbox products in the past, more so than you two. Like if they drop the service for people like you, it's hard to get it back. Like Game Pass is a very much once in a generation chance in terms of tech change in tech, isn't it? And I just hope they kind of pick it back up. For
me, Game Pass very much has the quantity going for it. If you just want to play, you're not worried about playing the latest and greatest AAA, quadruple A titles day and date, and you're just happy to just, I've got a few hours a week, I just want to be able to just bounce around a lot of games, play a lot of stuff. Game Pass is amazing for that. You have access to so much stuff. I would advocate, I am massively still to this day advocate, because even things like, as we mentioned earlier, Redfall, I think there's a good game in there that you can have a great time if you just like. I think if we weren't streaming it and we weren't kind of like playing it with a half in mind that we are kind of reviewing it a bit, and we us three just sat down one evening, a few beers off camera, I think we'd have a good time. But are we having a good time because we're playing it together?
Yeah,
is that the game that's riding it, or is the game just an excuse for us to hang out? So there's stuff like that. I think if that's all you want from gaming, absolutely, it's there for you. And things like Deathloop, I played. Deathloop was the first game I played on my Series S. And I played it for about 3 or 4 hours and then never went back to it. It just didn't sink its teeth into me. Like, there's a lot of games like that for me on like Game Pass. So it definitely has a quantity. What they need for me, what I'm looking for is them to start bring out these games that really rise above the rest and kind of go, these are must-play games regardless of what platform you have.
I'm not even so much like must-play, but I think a lot of the titles, they fall short of creating a new IP. So like they create it, but it doesn't just like the game doesn't hook you enough to sustain like a second game or
it doesn't feel new enough. It doesn't feel unique enough.
Yeah.
Do we think we see a Redfall 2?
No.
No.
I don't want that to happen. I think Arcane need to go back to what they've done really well. I don't think they necessarily need to make a sequel to like a Dishonored or Prey or Deathloop, but kind of go back to the principles that made that studio beloved and focus on developing the best game they can with them principles, where I think Redfall was a departure from it, and it hasn't been received well. It's probably not going to do commercially well. It's not going to move the needle for Game Pass much. Can you see Microsoft greenlighting that? Because I really can't. No. And I think it's to their credit to not, even if Arcane want to do it, and kind of go, you know what, guys, like seriously, I know you want to, even if they do want to do it, it's like, you are better off doing something else. Like,
yeah, I think Deathloop 2 will be the shoe-in.
Not dictate to them what to do, but kind of go, no, we're not doing Redfall 2. We're not doing that game again.
I think just because Deathloop got all the accolades and Game of the Year nods, I think that's a smart one to go back to.
Microsoft should have bought Crystal Dynamics. That would solve a lot of their problems. You know, we're looking for these third-person, narrative-driven, action-adventure-style games that Sony do so well.
Yeah.
Tomb Raider, it's right there.
Yeah, but then they would have got loads of backlash for taking Tomb Raider away from PlayStation fans, probably, or whatever. They did it with the second entry. But that aside, does that not attest to maybe they put too many eggs in one basket when it came to this Activision Blizzard King deal? Like, a lot of their problems would be solved if they had Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, there's your variation platformers. You've got your story-driven adventures as well coming from the wider teams. And then you've got, obviously, Call of Duty in-house as well. Diablo would technically be theirs too. And World of Warcraft.
Overwatch. Yeah,
you've got so many things that are ticked, and now that doesn't seemingly look to be going through anytime soon. I just hope this doesn't leave a void in Game Pass's library, like in a year's time or a second year's time, when they were hoping to go like Phil keeps saying, every quarter we want that first-person AAA game out. We haven't got
the studios to do it.
Yeah,
and they have the talent to do it. They need the direction to do it.
Yet.
That's where I think it is. Yeah, time, but I think the time is settled by having enough studios. So if you have like 20 studios and you're trying to bring out one game a quarter, that means a studio only has to bring out a game once every 5 years.
Which is about right.
Yeah, so I think time's there. What I think they need is there's definitely the talent in their studios to bring out some games that rival the likes of God of War. They just need that, I think, creative vision. Like, they need a Cory Barlog in someone like Arcane to kind of go, this is my vision for this game. Right, how do we execute on that vision? And kind of have almost like a no compromises kind of approach. Like, because think about,
that was one of the things Phil mentioned, and he said they discussed about delaying Redfall, and he actively said, like, it's almost a weird self-admittance, but he said if we went back and delayed Redfall, the creative vision and the goal from the start, delaying it wouldn't have made a difference for that. So I basically think he's admitting there that the team had an idea to do this vampire co-op game. It didn't work. The vision was, like, what it ended up becoming, it wasn't what they'd initially intended. And he said, I think no matter delaying it 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, half a year,
it's at the concept stage.
Yeah, they were like, it's gone. Like, at its core, it doesn't work. And it seems really bad, doesn't it? 2 days after the game launches, they're pretty much just going, almost like, don't play it. Like, the head of Xbox just came out and said, vision wasn't saw through, we made mistakes, we'll sort it out next time, it's part of Game Pass, sorry that it cost £70 for anyone who bought it. That must pull the marketing out for it. Like, if you were on the fence with checking Redfall out, you definitely ain't going to do it now.
See, listen to that interview. Again, if you haven't already, go check out the Kind of Funny XCast. It's an absolute must-see content for this. He seemed genuinely pissed off with himself by the nature of that game and his failure to kind of steer it into the right direction, which I give him credit for. However, what I do struggle to give him credit for is he still knew what that game was and still released it as a $70 title. If that was a $40 title, if when they saw it and they changed the expectations of what that game was going to be internally and accepted that they're not going to make as much money off this, if this came out as a $40 passion project rather than a $70 AAA tentpole, the conversation around it is very different.
Yeah, but I guess that goes back to, I think everyone's on Game Pass. So I don't think anyone is foolish enough to actually pay $70 for it.
But
if you did...
But some people
Who though?
I don't know, but there must be people out there. Like,
I think he's apologising for the sake of it, but I think a lot of it is satiated by the fact that I think everyone we know in our Discord.
It's not just the price, it's the marketing, it's how they positioned it in their library. They positioned it to be this tentpole where if they didn't truly believe in it, which seems to be the case, they could have positioned this to be just a smaller library title.
Yeah.
But anyway, I
think...
Big
future ahead for Xbox.
Yeah.
Big summer. I can't wait for June. The fact that we get to sit there and we get a PlayStation 1, we get some Switch Nintendo Directs, and then we've got an Xbox Showcase. Like, come the back end of June, we're going to know so much more about what we're playing in the years to come. It's going to be insane. I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, we don't really have much time left in this show, so we're not going to dig any further into any other news stories, because there was some things like the Ravenlock reviews are out, the Glass Case of Benedict Fox reviews are out. We might touch on them next week if there's time. Just to sum up, what I try on a positive note, so I'll try and end it. What is it that you really, really think that they need to do with this showcase? Because this is their, in my opinion, this is their chance to kind of get the wrestle control of the narrative back.
I think they don't need to do that much, because the reality is this game is as fickle as we are sometimes. Is at the same time we're always forward facing. We're always looking for that next best thing. And if they come out and just blow us away with a couple of cool trailers, a couple of titles, a couple of like surprises, and maybe we've revised this franchise. Like, again, if we see a sequel announced to Rise Son of Rome, people are going to pop off like over the moon about something like that. And if we go, there's a new Gears of War game in the works, again, give us some of that those member berries, that nostalgia. Announce a couple of new controllers, Game Pass for friends and family. They could make a ton of announcements, and I guarantee you everyone will just forget about this whole Redfall fiasco so quickly. It won't even matter. Everyone's on Game Pass. Most people are signed up to their X and the Rest console purchase with a 2-year plan. So we're all in it on the Xbox front for at least another year and a bit. They've got time, and I think gamers move on. And at the end of the day, we've still got third-party titles. So if you're not happy with the Xbox ones, go play Jedi Survivor. Go play Hogwarts Legacy. That's the great thing about being a video game fan, is there's new shit out every other day. Well, you didn't even get to talk about Ravenlock, but like that's out now. So if you don't like Redfall, go play something different. Like Rob, you spent half the year playing Age of Empires and stuff and Command and Conquer. So
it
doesn't matter
whether you're looking past on Game Pass.
And Game Pass is great for that, because they're always around. So everyone can find fun somewhere. But I think the showcase will be fun. I'm excited for it. And
there's lots of studios with TBC projects, aren't there? So it's like
the unknown.
The next hit could be around the corner.
I think there's one word you dropped in at the end there, Chris. I think is key. Is like, after this showcase, I'm excited for the showcase. I want to still be excited after it. I want to be excited for what's coming up in Xbox after that showcase. And I think that's all they need to do. Just get me excited by something that I can play on my Xbox. Because at the moment, my Xbox is my Game Pass machine.
Exactly the same.
Yeah. But that's all we have time for the week. If you've liked this video, make sure you hit that like button and sub to the channel, and consider becoming a member for as little as 99p. Don't forget you can get all of our shows on podcast feeds. We have a Discord server where you can talk even more and try and convince me to buy Tears of the Kingdom. Links in the description below. Thank you very much for watching. My name's been Richie.
I've been Chris.
And I've been Rob.
Hopefully Xbox gets us excited. Goodbye.